Hey, how we doing, everybody? Welcome back to another week of the Roundtable Pod with myself, Mike Walden, our boy Kurtz, and today we are joined by, man, a legend right here, man. Talk a line, our legend, Sonny Verisma, Sonny V. Um, how you doing today, Sonny?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic, guys. Thank you so much for the invite. It's been a crazy up and down the Illini basketball season. The lows were low, the highs were high. Final Four run, and now I feel like as much of a roller coaster ride the regular season was, the transfer portal has been the equal amount. So I'm looking forward to covering both the Illini and Chicago Bulls. I told you guys in the group chat, I grew up in Chicago during the Jordan era. So
Mhm.
despite what's been going on for the X amount of years, the Bulls always hold the number one spot in my heart. So whenever I get the opportunity to talk both Illini and Bulls, I jump at it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Kurtz actually gave me this idea last week. So we haven't been like having our guests introduce themselves. So shout out to, I think you said it was your pops, Kurtz. Shout out to Papa Kurtz for giving us this suggestion. But yeah, Sonny, if you can, just if you want to tell everybody like what you do and where to find you and everything like that.
Yeah, I appreciate that opportunity. If you're an Illini fan and you're on YouTube or on audio podcast, you can find me. I do daily shows every single day on Locked On Illini. And that's including the off season, just because the regular season's over for football and basketball. I cover all Illini sports, by the way, so both football, basketball, and whatever else is of interest. Find me on Locked On Illini. You can also find my other project, Talk Illini, which is more quick hits, anywhere from 10 to 15-minute episodes associated with On 3 in regards to that. So looking forward to that opportunity as well. And it's if you like Illini content, there's a chance you might have seen my face before.
just maybe. Just maybe. You want to tell them about the Talk Line on Discord, man?
Oh,
Because
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I've
So
had such a great time. All three of us are in Sonny's Discord, man, and dude, it's during the tourney, some of the most hype nights of my life in
yeah,
there.
I genuinely mean it when I say that I think I've got the best Illini community that's out
Yeah.
there. I think we're almost at 450 members at this point,
Woo.
and for a year we were just hovering around like 25 and 30, and we celebrated 100. But
That's
it's a
crazy.
crazy bunch over there. Illini fans, we're very passionate, and sometimes
Mhm.
there's your neighbors or people at work don't share your passion. And so I always say that, look, if you want to enjoy a moment, you want to talk Illini sports with other people as passionate as you, definitely consider joining the Talk Illini Discord, because every day we gain more and more members, and it's just Illini talk all day, every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mike, how you doing today, man?
Good, good. I just wanted to, let Sonny take the floor for a second, but I want to say thank you to him for allowing me to join the Talk Illini Discord as well. As someone who is a hardcore Duke homer, despite being Chicago through and through my whole life, it's been pretty interesting and nice to see. I don't know if Sonny will disagree, but they get crazy as every fan base does, but a pretty respectful bunch for the most part. I was seeing them talk about the transfer portal, and I saw Duke come up, and I was like, here comes a bunch of slander. And they was like, they're more like, nah, Duke's like the team you got to watch out for. But I think we got this guy. And I was like, I like Illini fans. I can get used to this. But they've been pretty passionate. It's been great. I look at everything through an NBA draft lens. So it's been awesome to see how passionate these guys are about college basketball. It's been a while since I've been so singularly attached to the sport. I've just been so NBA focused. So seeing it during the tournament, how these guys were sort of living and dying on every single shot, it was just fun to get back in that mindset. So I really enjoyed getting to see it through the Illini lens.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Kurtz, my boy, how you doing, man? I think Kurtz's family is with us today, guys.
I'm good. Yeah, my family, all Illini people. I've talked about it a couple times on here. They're super excited for this one. And yeah, same with Mike. I've usually been pretty much a strictly NBA guy for the past couple of years. But with this year's freshman class and just college basketball in general being so great quality-wise, I had to hop in, see what was up. And the Illini, made a great tournament run. Was really fun to watch. It was fun to, interact with my family. My family actually went down to the Elite Eight or the Final Four. They went down to the Final Four. So that was awesome for them. Good to see that. And yes, excited to have Sonny on. The Discord's a great spot. Go check it out. You get a lot of early news. I know I'm sneaking peeks in there, so I could be the first one to text the family group chat what's going on. So it's a great place. Hop on in.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. All right, so Sonny, we got. I know you got like 30 minutes today, so we'll just jump right into it. From what we hear, man, we got some pretty big news for Illini fans, huh? Merck coming back, and is that Drake that came back?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of been the goal. Obviously, this is a team that was one of the younger, I mean, I guess middle of the road teams when it comes to youth, blended in with experience. But as soon as that Final Four was over, a media member shoved a microphone in Brad Underwood's face and like, hey, what would you want to tell the guys who could come back? And he's like, let's run it back. And it's been kind of a, up and down. Are they or are they not type of scenario with Illini basketball? But sure enough, I was never really concerned from everything I heard and basically seeing the moves that Illinois was trying to make, the guys that they were trying to bring in. I noticed that there was really no front court options. And to me, that kind of gave me the confidence that they knew the front court guys were coming back. Tomislav is coming back. Tomislav, his twin brother, Zvonimir, David Mirkovic is coming back. Jake Davis is coming back. The only person who isn't coming back, of course, is Keaton Wagler, who I know we're going to talk about in a little bit. But again, if you're a potential top 5 pick, which I think some of the publications have him as, it's a no-brainer for him to go. But again, they're retaining a lot of the guys, the core pieces that took them to the Final Four last year. And I'm really excited to see what they can do, all with one more year of experience under them.
Absolutely. So like that, you put that perfectly, because my biggest question is, from your view as someone who covers it and just watches it religiously, like with those guys returning, because I like from what I saw in the tourney with Dre, man, I feel like he could have been like a second round talent, maybe into the first round talent. So like, what would you say is like the biggest difference between like the NBA and the NCAA?
I mean, athleticism for the most part. I mean, when I watch the NBA, I watch the NBA to see the best in the world do what they do. Like my favorite sport's always been basketball. I think it's the most pure sport out there. And you're talking about guys who don't get off the bench in the NBA, who could lead their college teams to, an NCAA championships. It's a little bit different. Obviously, the athleticism isn't quite there. It's more of a team game, certainly at the college basketball level. If there's one thing that I think that's turned a lot of people off when it comes to the NBA product, is the players are so good that it's become kind of singularly focused, that if you're that good, you can have the ball in your hands and there's nothing the defense can do to stop you. Whereas in college basketball, that even if you are a top 3, type of talent, that's really not the case. It is more of a collective team effort, both on offense and on defense. So when it comes to the purity of the sport, I actually do prefer the college basketball game, just because there's more involvement with all 5 guys on the basketball court. But when you're just talking about just pure talent, it's hard to not appreciate what you have in the NBA.
Absolutely. Kurt, you got a question for Sonny here?
Yeah, I did. We'll just hop right in, I guess, huh? So, covering the Illini, you get to see them play in the Big Ten, which is one of the best college basketball conferences on the planet. And you get to see them play a lot of great out-of-conference teams because of their standing in the national, the national world of college basketball. I guess we'll start away from the Illini, because that's where my question was going. But out of all the guys that Illinois played this year, both in the Big Ten and out of conference, was there any players that really stood out to you, as you could see maybe being a guy to watch at the NBA level, or a guy that you're excited to watch at the NBA level?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. I'm trying to think of the guys in particular that that Illinois played that are mocked high in the draft. I can bring up guys like Flemings, but Flemings really didn't have a great game against Illinois. So it's like you're hard pressed to see what he could. I mean, again, super talented guy. The guy I think about, and if you're an Illini fan, you're going to hate that I'm going to say this, but it's just true. I don't know if he's going to come out in this NBA draft. He might wait another year. Is not quite Mara, as Phil, a big fan of our community. It's his teammate, Morez Johnson Jr. I really think that I followed him since his high school days. This kid is a workaholic. He's all about the grind. And I think that once he develops maybe 1 or 2 more things, he's going to be a really good, at worst, role player at the NBA level. Like, there's no scenario in my mind that I've played out where he ends up being a bust. I think that he's one of those guys like Ayo. And those of you who followed me back in the Ayo days, you would know that I thought drafting Ayo Dosunmu in the 15 range in the first round was a no-brainer. Essentially saying, you've got a guy he's all around talented, but a guy who's going to work his butt off to guarantee yourself a 6 to 10 year NBA career. And if you can get that at the 15 level, it's worth it. How he fell, as far as he fell, I don't know. And I really do think that Morez is also that sort of player, a guy who knows what his faults are, and he's going to work on his game as much as he can. I think he's probably coming back to Michigan next year, but he's probably the most notable player. I don't have the schedule in front of me, and so I'm trying to cycle through the other guys in my head. But I will say, I talked way too much Michigan and Morez on the show already, and my community is going to hate me for doing that. But I'll say Morez is a guy who I think, if he's available, if he decides to come out and he's available for the Bulls to draft, I would jump at it.
Nice.
Not
This
at 9,
next question
not at 9
will
or
be
15, but it's context matters.
Exactly.
And I can say, Sonny, Io went too low for the same reason that Yaxel from Michigan is going to go too low. And I'm guilty of it myself, but the age thing, we just focus on it too much. If a guy is young, he's young. If he's coming out of the draft or coming into the draft as a 26-year-old rookie, I get it. But if a guy is 23, is he going to be a productive player? So I think we focus on the age a little too much sometimes.
Yeah, and just for our good friend Undisputed, Merck is a better college basketball player than Morez is, and Merck had a better freshman season than Morez Johnson Jr. is. Those two statements you can't argue. NBA talent, that's a completely different conversation. We're going to talk about, some of these guys and whatever potential they might have for the NBA. But no, I'm actually with Phil. When it comes to the college basketball game, David does more on the court, and he had a better. I devoted a full episode to this. David was better and more impactful his freshman year at Illinois than Morez Johnson Jr. was his freshman year.
I actually have a quick one for you, Sonny, that's been bugging me a lot because, again, I'm all NBA focused. I usually try to do a huge big board. This year, I might only go to 20 players because I'm so hyper focused on the lottery. So you watch, Illini day in, day out, know everything about him. Andrej Stojakovic, this is Peja Stojakovic's son, if I'm correct here. The first thing I go to is the numbers. I can't help myself. It's what I'm going to do. What's the advanced stats? What's going on here? Very strong player when I watch him on the court. First thing I go to is what is he shooting from three? 30% three-point shooter for his career. This year, the worst three-point shooting of his career at 24%. I know he's a good player, so Illini fans don't kill me. I'm not like, this kid's a bum. I just want to understand. Obviously, I'm sure for people who are just like surface level college basketball fans, it's like, oh, Peja's kid, he must be shooting the lights out from three. And it's like, oh. So I just want you to tell me what type of player is Andrej Stojakovic?
Well, close your eyes and think of what his father was. And basically, he's the inverted version of that. He does nothing his father does well, but he's a guy who he attacks the rim unlike anyone else at the college basketball level. He's got an NBA level skill in that regard already. He came to Champaign last year as an average at best defender, but Brad Underwood told him that, hey, if you want to play for our basketball team, you need to learn to defend and you need to learn to rebound. And he's done both of those. The three-point shooting, the fact that he isn't shooting 35% from three-point line is the reason he's coming back for his senior year at Illinois. He's going to have to work on that all off season. I think, if anything, him returning is probably the best for him in the sense where now he's got 2 years at the same institution. He played at Stanford his freshman year. He played at Cal his sophomore year. He played at Illinois his junior year. He's never been in the same place for 2 years. And I'm not being disrespectful. I don't know how many Cardinal or Cal fans you might have watching the show, but those aren't exactly known for basketball development. Coming to Illinois, working with these coaches, I think is going to be huge for a guy like Andre. He's going to get all offseason to kind of fix his shot. He's got a weird where he shoots, where the ball releases, it's like a little too much to the left side when he's a right-handed shooter. And I think that, the fact that he's going to be able to spend all summer long working on that, he's got a bright future in him because of his size. And let's be honest, because of his name, he's going to get looks from NBA GMs and to scouts out there. If he can get to the 34, 35% level, I think he can carve out a role as like a, like an 8th, 9th guy on a decent basketball team.
Yeah, I think too, especially what stands out to me with him is how fluid of an athlete he is. He seems to glide across the court like he's on ice skates on a rink. and it's like a really beautiful thing to watch. And I like the point that you made about Underwood having him emphasize defense and rebounding, because those are two things he's going to need to do better to make it as a pro and find a role on an NBA team. But I also think him coming back is really good for him as well. I'm not sure who's come in at the guard spot to replace Wagler and Boswell, but he's going to have a lot more opportunity with the ball in his hands. And I think he could legit be a 20-point scorer or close to it with increased opportunity as well.
Yeah, if we're talking about a secondary thing that he's going to have to work on is the one fault with Andre. And I know, Guilty, you joined the Illini Discord a little bit late. And so you're like, as soon as you started watching, like, why isn't Andre playing more? The one other fault that Andre has is that every time he touches the ball, you know what's about to happen. He's going to put his head down and he's going to attack the rim. This team was the number one offense in the history of KenPom for the majority of the year. And the reason that is because they played 5 out. They passed the ball and they'd hunt mismatches and they'd play that way. But as soon as Andre has the ball's stopping. He's going to go ahead. He's going to attack the rim. His assist numbers weren't very high. And I think that's going to be a thing that he's going to have to work on this upcoming offseason. It's going to be he's going to be in a better situation. He came off the bench at the end of the year. But I think a lot of that had to do with the system that Illinois has. It needs shooters on the court. And as we just got finished talking about, Andre's not a shooter. And neither was Kylan Boswell, the starting point guard. And so when you have two non-shooters on the court, all of a sudden your greatest offense in history of KenPom is no longer working at its premium efficiency. But Kylan has all of a sudden graduated. And so now I think it's a no-brainer. You slide Andre back into the starting 3 spot. We still don't know who's going to be the next guard next to Stefan Vox, but I think you can let Andre do his thing and still have your great offense, because he's going to be the only guy who's not the elite shooter on the court.
Nice. So, quick question. I don't know if he's still in here, but I know you see our guy Kelder, and this might pertain to our guy Mike Walton as well. But he says, ask him how he feels about losing Blackwell to Duke.
Thank you for asking it and not forcing me to be the one to acknowledge it. I was like, please, someone don't make me read this. So,
I mean, it is what it is. Like, if Illini fans all offseason long, they're not going to – my Discord's going to hate that I feel like I have to scold them on this, right? So the season ended, and everybody wanted # the retention back. Well, you know what? If you want a guy like Andrej Stojakovic back, if you want David Mirkovic back, if you want Tomislav Visic back, if you want Zvonimir Visic back, those guys cost a lot of money. Guys like Tommy, guys like Zvonimir, they would have gotten $3-4 million out there in the open market. And so it's up to you. Do you want Blackwell back? But then maybe Andrej Stojakovic doesn't come back. Are you going to be happy with that? It's a give and take. This isn't an NBA team. It's not unlimited funds. And so it's a simple matter of, would John Blackwell look really nice in a blue and orange uniform next year? Sure. But guys, mark the date of this episode. When the season starts, I think fans are going to be really surprised by just how good Quentin Coleman, who's a top 20 guard coming in next year, who's essentially, I hate saying the Keaton Wagler replacement, but he's the next guard, I guess you can say. How really good Quentin Coleman's going to be, and also Lucas Murillo. I think he's a top 45 guy. He does everything on the basketball court. I think people were so focused on the retention, and so there's so much excitement there. It's one of those things where, and I mean this respectfully, even towards Duke or UNC or any of the Blue Bloods, if we compared rosters right now, I don't know if a head coach would trade rosters, would not trade their roster for the Illini roster going into next year. This is going to be a team that's going to be preseason top 5. And as Illinois, you have to figure out where you're going to spend your resources. And you know what? Duke, they're rebuilding a lot of their roster, so they can go aggressively towards a guy like Blackwell, because Illinois has spent a lot of money, deservedly, on the guys that we all want back. So it's pick and choose. Do I want Blackwell in Champaign? Absolutely. Would it be a cool story with his dad being a former Illini? Absolutely. But I'd much rather have our retention back, because, with Blackwell coming back, he's got 1 year left in college basketball, and he's not a for sure NBA talent. So if he comes back to this loaded Illini team, where's his head at? Is it all about Is it going to fit in seamlessly with the chemistry and the culture that this team essentially got known for last year? Or is he going to look for the ball a little bit more to raise that draft stock a little bit? I don't have that question about Andrei Stojakovic. I don't have that question about David Mirkovic. Those guys, they're streaming together during the offseason. You saw the culture that they had during the regular season. Brad, if it was a financial decision, I think Brad made the right choice.
Interesting. On the topic of resources and team building, obviously one of the biggest topics surrounding college basketball recently has been NIL and has been the ability for certain schools to pay players. And this offseason, I've seen some ridiculous NIL numbers, especially in the basketball transfer portal, where like a center who averaged like 10 points is making like $2 million, which is ridiculous to me. And as somebody on the inside, I just wanted to know your thoughts on how NIL is shaping up and maybe what you're seeing and if you think it's going in the right direction or not.
Absolutely not going in the right direction. But again, I'm a little older, like I grew up as a kid in the 90s. So it's like what I perceive as the purity of college sports, I got to experience over the last few years. Obviously, NIL's taken over, and even the people in charge of the NCAA are just making more decisions based on business than the actual sport itself. Now, having said that, I don't have any control over NIL and where the sport is headed. And I can say that one thing I'm grateful for on the basketball side is that if the sport continues to move in this direction, Illinois has placed itself at the point where they can be one of the haves as opposed to the have-not. So it's like one of those, I don't necessarily like the system, but I do like the fact that Illinois is going to be one of the teams, the programs that can take advantage of the system.
Yes, absolutely. So, you know what? That reminds me. I had a question though, because I know, like, shout out to the hooded one, hooded corn. Only God knows where he's at these days. But like something I kept seeing him say in your Discord was that not my coach. So I would see you like kind of scold him sometimes on Brad Underwood. So it seems like from what I get from an outside perspective, is Brad Underwood kind of like Illinois' Billy Donovan, where he's a decorated coach. He's a great coach, but it's just like he's underappreciated, would you say? Because I don't know much about Underwood.
I wouldn't even say underappreciated, but there's no middle ground with Brad, with Illini fans. And I really, it's hard for me to fathom, especially until finally he got to make his Final Four run this past offseason or this past season, even 2 years ago. Brad made it to the Elite Eight. And yet most fans or the quote unquote haters are saying, yeah, well, he lucked into Terrence Shannon Jr. on that basketball team. And that's the only reason. Look, Brad doesn't have the best career when it comes to postseason, but it's really not as bad as people are making it out to be. Again, I devoted a full Locked On Illini episode to this. The only really bad loss that they had was to Loyola in that 1 year where they were a number one seed. But even then, Loyola was a top 10 Ken Pom team. Like if that team played in today's modern era, that would have been a 3 seed, maybe even a 2 seed. So it's one of those where, I think that is kind of a stain on Brad's legacy. But up until this past offseason, he's never going to be a big X's and O's guy. That's just not him. But when it comes to being a program builder, he's probably top 5 in the country. The team that he took over for John Gross, I think 7-8 years ago, that team was dormant. It had very lack of talent. And now we have guys who I just mentioned. I just watched Lucas Murillo at the Nike Hoop Summit last week. And 4 or 5 years ago, I would be so excited. Like, this is going to be one of the 2-3 best players on the basketball team. And now I'm sitting here telling you that I love Lucas's game, but he's probably going to be the 8th guy in this rotation. And that just shows you every year. The other thing I love about, I know I keep rambling, but
ramble on, dude. We love listening to you cook something.
With Brad.
Yeah,
he is not afraid to adjust. He came into the Illini playing a pressing style defense that tried to force turnovers, but they let up a lot of turnovers because that's what he was doing at Stephen F. Austin and Oklahoma State, that type of play. But he realized it was not going to translate to the Big Ten level, so he switched that around. And then he went to playing with a guard heavy, going through Io, and then he switched the following year. They went to playing inside out with Kofi Coburn. he was one of the first guys to embrace the transfer portal. We have a lot of guys who are great coaches, don't get me wrong, but who are too stubborn to change what they see is working. Brad will recognize something. He's one of the more forward-thinking coaches in college basketball. He saw 2 years ago that, you know what, high school talent domestically costs a lot of money. And for whatever reasons, I can keep it as vague as possible. Like, a lot of headaches come with that, with the culture of high school and AAU sports around here. So what does he do? He starts building a relationship years ago with some of the top agents out in Europe. And it's not a coincidence. It's not a surprise that Illinois now has essentially their pick of the litter of the best talent coming up through the European systems. And it all starts with Brad recognizing that years ago and cultivating that relationship. And now you see a team that just went to the Final Four, is going to be a top 5 preseason team. And I think I'm being conservative there. That going to be led by, hashtag the Balkans. It's all by design with Brad. And I'll say, and if this doesn't work, Brad's still looking to the future. He'll adjust again if he has to. He wants to win a national championship at Illinois, and if the current system's not working, he's gonna pivot and figure out a system that might.
I love that, man. Especially I'm learning how to see the game better myself. I know I was always getting on Billy Donovan for his lack of adjustments, but the one main talking point that people have been saying all year is look at the people that he has on his team to coach. Yeah. So, I'm learning to appreciate him more, but it is cool to hear that you guys have a coach where he does make those adjustments, and he is, like Ash was just saying, he's constantly pushing and looking to improve. So it's cool to hear. I know Kurt has a pretty good question for you.
Yeah, maybe we transition over to the NBA side a little bit more. Obviously, Keaton Wagler, darling of the Illini this year.
Yes,
he's a guy that kind of came out of nowhere for most fans, I would say. And maybe we start there. Like, somebody on the inside, you probably got wind of him a lot sooner than the rest of the world did. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on, maybe where he started at the beginning of the season for the Illini, or even the preseason, and how he got to where he is now, where he's a top 10 projected. Some people even say top 5 projected pick.
Yeah, I mean, the Keaton Wagler story is just something that's not going to happen anymore. And I mean that humbly, especially in this day and age of analytics and everyone having a phone and always trying to have an edge, programs. I'm talking about NBA level as well. Keaton was ranked in the 200s, playing for a small school out in Shawnee, Kansas, in the backyard of Kansas, Bill Self. And Bill Self never even offered him a scholarship. In fact, he only had 2 Power 4 scholarships, Minnesota and Illinois, one when he committed. And so it's one of those stories where we heard rumblings in the summer. Like, Brad basically came out, he had a media session, and he's like, we just had 2 guys go in the top 21 or top 22 in the NBA draft, because Persiak Shonis and Will Riley, and we have a new freshman in here, Keaton Wagler, who's as good as those guys are. And it's funny, I laugh about this now. I did a show the very next day, and I was really just ticked off. I was like, listen, if Keaton gives us 8 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist per game, this is a freshman, a skinny freshman. Brad is known for doing this. Brad loves to hype up his own guys, and then when we see what happens on the court, we're like, all right, Brad, what are you doing? So now, if you've been a fan for, I think he's entering his 8th or 9th year, this is kind of what Brad does. But then, as they started practicing together, even Kylan Boswell, the captain of this team, was like, dude, this Keaton guy is really good. And that's when we really started to get feedback and whispers that, hey, this Keaton kid's going to be pretty good. I wouldn't say he struggled at the start of the season, but he wasn't the focal point. He was a complimentary player. And then essentially it was after, I would say, maybe the UConn game, when Illinois lost, and they really weren't competitive in that game. They played them on, I believe it was Black Friday this past year. And Brad Underwood and this coaching staff, who of course, they're watching this team at practice each and every day. They're like, you know what? This kid is special. He does what this offense needs. Like, he's 6'5", he can handle the point, or 6'6", he can handle the point guard spot, and he doesn't create turnovers. Super high IQ guy. They handed Keaton the keys, and all of a sudden, this became the best offense in the country. And, he's so unassuming. He's not a guy who necessarily screams. He doesn't mouth off. He doesn't have a big attitude. And so he's quietly produced, just one of the most incredible seasons at the college basketball level. And I do mean it when I say this. And this is not, I'm not saying the Illini fans never going to see the story again. I don't know if at the college basketball level, we're going to see a guy who is ranked in the 200s. Basically, a guy who nobody knew outside the Illini circle come in, become an All-American, become All Big Ten, and then maybe even slide in the top 5 in the NBA draft.
My bad. I had my mic off. I was saying hell yeah over and over. But no, go ahead, Walton. My bad. But hell yeah.
No, yeah. I was going to say, I just agree. Obviously, unlike Sonny, it's interesting hearing that because we're kind of attacking it from different angles. I knew, obviously, based off his background, it was kind of weird that Kansas didn't have him on the radar. So I assume this is a kid who was a little bit of a late developmental story. Doesn't take but one look at him to say, man, this kid really needs to maybe pack on a little bit of weight on the frame, which is what we say about literally half of these kids at this point in the draft. But yeah, everything Sonny said is true. Wagler right now for my board is at 5th, which is probably on the higher side. But again, if you look at consensus, he's really in that range of 5 to 8, I would say, in most boards. And it comes from the fact that he really has such an interesting scoring package. He looks to have everything you look for in terms of a slick pick and roll ball handler, which in today's NBA is a majority of the game. I like his fit specifically in Chicago because defensively, I'm not worried about it. Everyone always wants to talk to me about defense when we talk about prospects. The Bulls are going to be bad at defense. You can put prime Hakeem Olajuwon on this team right now. They're going to be bad. It's just we're not there yet. We're not there yet. You can add a good defensive prospect. I like that. No matter who you add, team's probably going to be bad at defense. Now that we got that out of the way, Wagler, my main thing with him, 25% usage rate, I think 10% turnover rate. So I look at that before anything. I'm like, this is a kid who's handling a lot of load for his team offensively, and it doesn't seem like he's making a lot of mistakes. No. And he's a true freshman. He's not throwing the ball all over the court. He's not getting a kind of ton of turnovers. He's not making a lot of mistakes. That in itself is interesting before we even get to the fact that he's shooting 39% from 3. I'm obsessed with 3-point percentage. I'm obsessed with taking threes aggressively. Something that bugs the hell out of me is fake shooters. If anyone follows Trill Withers on Twitter, he talks about it a lot with guys like Luke Kennard. They're shooting the hell out of the ball, shooting 70% from 3 and taking 2 a game. If you're a good shooter, take more. And Wagler is a guy who, if he's feeling hot, I think he legitimately will get up 15 threes in an NBA game. I don't think he has any problem doing that if he thinks he's feeling it from deep. And that's on the extreme side. You don't need to be doing that every night. But when you're not afraid of your shot going in, when you're confident and you're feeling it and you trust yourself, that's how you have nights like where Wagler had a 46-point game. And in that game, he went 9 for 11 from 3. And I was pissed. I was like, keep going. Why'd you stop? You were barely missing. Take more threes. So he's one of those guys where when you look at his skill set, what it is now, he's a skinny kid who's shooting the lights out from 3. He shot 48% on 2s. And then I think his free throw rate was about 47%. So he's getting to the line on 47% of his field goal attempts. And this is a kid who I don't think of as strong. So as he adds to his frame and learns NBA defenses, I think you're looking at a guy who, again, he's not Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but similar to him in terms of people are going to call Wagler a free throw grifter, I think, at the height of his game, because he's going to look like he's flailing all over the place and getting to the line when he's just a guy who knows how to snake his way into the paint and kind of get off some odd shots. So I love everything about his game offensively to the point where he could literally be a negative on his, on defensively his entire career, and I probably wouldn't care at this point.
And nice. I will say, I don't think he's going to be a negative on the defensive end. He was maybe average. I think the analytics show he's just about average at the college basketball level. But I'm really excited to see, when he makes it to the NBA, and then he doesn't have to worry about going to class and, doing this, being a college kid. He's basically going to be locked in those locker rooms, with the trainers, and building his body and frame up. He's still skinny. Right. And the one thing that stood out to me is despite his frame, which is, as we mentioned, kind of like it needs to put on 10, 15 more pounds. He played in the rough and tumble Big Ten conference, and he never got hurt. He didn't miss a single game. And this is a guy, which I know you guys were paying attention to. He has no problem putting his head down and going at the rim, and going up against the other Big Ten big guys. He would get pushed around. He would get shoved to the ground. He would get hit. And yet he never got hurt. When he has a chance for maybe maybe even the first offseason, 1 or 2 off seasons, gain good solid 10, 15 pounds. The kid's 19 years old. You know, he may end up being 6'7". He may end up being 6'8". He's got point guard skills. And as you mentioned, he's got beyond NBA level IQ. That's the one thing that jumps out at you. Mike, you're absolutely right. When it comes to freshmen, if I feel like even the top freshmen, sometimes they act like they're freshmen. Keaton, I never got that vibe. I knew last year Will Riley was going to be a really solid NBA player, but at times he was running around with like his head cut off, like just super excited. You know, it's like I always equated it to like the 13-year-old boy who was allowed to play with his big brother who are 18 and 19, and he was just so excited to show his skill that he tried to do too much. That's what a lot of freshmen do. Keaton never got that. Keaton was always a guy who super poised. Again, that Mackey Arena, which is, I think, unfortunately, why our friend Undisputed has been so sour on Wagler, like what he did against his Boilermakers. That's going to be talked about for years to come. For years to come, that performance. And, you know, as you said, he's not afraid of the moment either. So he not only embraces it, he's not afraid of it. And I can't wait to see what he does moving forward.
Speaking of ostrich, like my bad, Chris, I'm about to let you cook, but like that's one of the cool things, like what you mentioned, Sonny. I didn't think about that. Like we forget that these are still kids. So like your point about him getting to the NBA and getting to lock in, because like when I watched a few games I did watch, I can't speak to his defensive effort, but he gave effort. Like that's what I liked about him the most. He wasn't just an offensive player. The kid was out there putting in, like when the shot wasn't dropping, which seems to be a case in the first half for them, all tourney. But he was still contributing on the floor in every other aspect. I mean, getting his own shots, his own rebounds, hustling, you know, diving on the floor, playing defense. So to your point, I think that, yeah, when he gets to the league, he showed those intangibles, the winning traits. So it's just all about when he has that time to actually apply that. I think you do have a hell of a player on your hands. And one thing that Ostrich is always saying is that people try to write him off because he's not, you know, demonstrative and all tough. But the kid is he has that FU attitude to him. You know, he's a winner. He may not be, you know, over the top and cocky and loud and boisterous, but he's got that quiet confidence. So I do look forward to seeing that. So I like that you brought that up. But what were you gonna say, Kurtz?
No, you took the words right out of my mouth, honestly. I was thinking the exact same thing. I think his defense doesn't get, you know, the credit it does. And also the rebounding is really impressive. That's a skill that often translates at a very high level to the NBA. And he very much is a winning player, in my opinion. My qualms with Wagler, and specifically in relation to the Bulls, I think in general as an NBA prospect, he's great. And I think he's going to have a really long NBA career with his IQ and his work ethic. But specifically with the Bulls, it's the lack of athleticism for me. I know, Sonny, you as an Illini fan, you probably see it all over the place, like 0 dunks on the season. This guy can't do anything, you know? But when you put a guy like that next to an unathletic point guard like Josh Giddey, that's a pretty unathletic backcourt. And, you know, at the NBA, at the end of the day, it's a sport. You know, you got to have some great athletes out there. It would worry me putting 2 non-athletes on the floor, you know, at the same time. But I love Wagler. I think he's actually grown on me immensely, especially in the tournament, that Houston game. Even though he didn't really play that well, I love the way he competed against Flemings, who's another top prospect. I love his hands on defense. I think that's a standout thing that doesn't get talked about enough. He gets in passing lanes. He pokes at the ball handlers every now and then. And it's really impressive to watch, but I think he's very much going to have a great NBA career and a very long one as well.
I'm glad you brought up the lack of athleticism, Kurt, because I think like that's obviously going to be an issue. I think more so defensively. Offensively, I think it's so much more just about that skill set. How can you create advantage? How can you, get your team in the right spots? I think Giddey and Buzelis, quiet as kept, aren't really good pick and roll ball handlers just because Matas isn't there yet. Teams are still going under the screen on Giddey, daring him to do something with the ball. I think Trey Jones is really the only guy per NBA numbers who's pretty good pick and roll ball handler for the Bulls. He's getting about 1 point per possession, which is in like the 80th percentile, somewhere in that range. If you got Trey Jones, you give him a guy like Wagler, who I think is going to be a good pick and roll ball handler in his own right. You'll have him probably in the starting lineup next to Giddey. When Giddey comes out, you have Trey Jones replacing him. I think the Bulls could conceivably have a half court offense where you always have a pretty good pick and roll engine. You have a low turnover team like when DeMar DeRozan was in charge, where your lead guys are sort of turning the ball over so little that everything else functions at a high level in the half court. Plus, Wagler still gives you that transition ability because we know he's not scared to take threes in transition, get to the line. I think with him, you're drafting him with the idea that your offense is going to create so many advantages that you can put a bunch of 3-and-D guys or just strictly rim running lob threats who can block shots out there to sort of compensate. I've said it before, I think on the last pod, Kevin Martin, if anybody remembers him from the NBA, is kind of what exactly I see with Wagler, just better. Wagler's younger, he's starting from an earlier point where I think he can be that type of player. And Kevin Martin really didn't do anything crazy. He just for his career, I think is like an 18-point per game type guy who shot like 40% from three, was getting to the free throw line a lot for a skinny guy with a weird shot. I think I see the exact type of career for Wagler. It's just I think he can hit greater heights because I believe so much in the shot and the IQ, and then you sort of build off of that. But I think Chicago is the perfect place for him because, again, I'm just ignoring the defense, and I think Giddey is a guy who has such a high IQ but turns over the ball a lot because he's asked to do so much. Having a guy who can sort of take some of that pressure off him and toggle on or off ball so effortlessly, and Wagler would really give Billy Donovan, or I guess whoever is the head coach, a lot of options for how they want to play.
Yeah, I said that before in the Bulls HQ Discord. I'm not sure I would take, Wagler if all of a sudden you jump into the top three or whatnot. But I think Keaton's got enough of game that I like the idea of him and Giddey as your backcourt because essentially you're going to have 2 6'6" and above point guards in your backcourt. You can run through either of them, and neither of them play the same way. Giddey's Keaton, as we mentioned, is super high IQ. He was the point guard of this Final Four Illini basketball team. I know Colin Boswell was his partner back there. He's shorter, but it was Keaton, as you mentioned, the usage rate, who had the ball in his hands most of the time. And whatever offensive system that either Billy or the next head coach designs, he can be confident that Keaton will run it to what it's supposed to be. Are running. When you talk about the defensive side, there's going to be questions, especially especially with athleticism with Batas or at least Giddey in particular. But you can surround him with that, and I think if somehow he falls to 9, the one thing that I think people overlook is if all of our memories were completely wiped of the NBA players and what we've seen on the court, and all of a sudden all we had to judge it on was an NBA draft combine. We saw all the players basically participate at the draft combine, very similar to what these guys are about to do in a month or so. I don't know if Luka Doncic would be drafted very high. I don't think Nikola would be drafted very high. I don't think Shai Gilgeous would be drafted very high. If you're just talking about those intangible, like you're talking about speed, athleticism, how high you can jump. And yet there's just something about being good at basketball. And I think a lot of people are making the same mistake that college coaches made. They watched him play at the high school level and he's not that fast. No, he's not dunking the ball. He's not doing this. He's not doing that. What they're not acknowledging is what he is doing on the basketball court. Then he goes to the Big Ten level, the best conference in all of college basketball. And he does the same thing over and over again. And he didn't dunk the ball all year. I get that. But you know what? He ended up and he finished as an All-American second team. There's something I feel like people are overlooking, just pure. I get the athleticism aspect. I get the dunking, and all those concerns that you might have. But sometimes you're just really good at the sport of basketball. And when you combine that with the high IQ, I just like the trajectory of that type of player.
Absolutely. Man, you Sonny, this was awesome, man. I know you say you gotta hop out of here. Thank you so much for coming on, man. And I love listening to you cook. We're gonna start calling you sunny side up around here, dude, because you come on here and you straight cook for us. But no, I appreciate you coming on today, man.
No, I really do appreciate the opportunity. Obviously I watch you guys every opportunity I get, and I'm a member of both the Talk Illini Discord and the Bulls HQ Discord, and two of my favorite communities there. And to be able to just combine the two, guilty.
Dude,
I'm so glad we made that decision about a month ago. I think it's been great for both my Discord and your Discord.
Absolutely.
We continue to level up. And if you're interested in Illini content, please find me on Locked On Illini, or the hat right here says Talk Illini. And again, I'm producing content every single day, even on weekends and even during the off season.
Absolutely, man. Sonny, you're the man. Yeah, shout out to Ostrich. I don't know who we had Undisputed there in here, but this was a great episode, man. Shout out to our guy Undisputed, Monk, GF. I saw him in the comments, and shout out to the whole Talk Illini Discord. Like I said, I told you when I first came in there, man, it is a blessing that we did that collab. But just the community that you built, Sonny, from the ground up, dude, it speaks to who you are as a person. You know what I mean? Like, they go crazy for you. I was telling Gavin, I was trying to get him in there during one of the games, and he was like, "Oh, Sonny had the Discord." I'm like, dude, they treat that man like Jordan Belfort. Like, I'm like, if you come in there on game night, Sonny's in there like the Wolf of Wall Street, dude. So, no, I appreciate you so much, man. And we'll definitely have to do some more episodes on collab soon.
Yeah, I can't wait. Secretly, if somehow the Bulls do end up drafting Keaton, I want to come right back here and talk about how excited two of my loves are finally joining forces. So I'd love that opportunity. But seriously, thank all three of you for giving me the opportunity to talk ball with you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks, Sonny. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, man.
All right, take care.
Later, Sonny. So, boys, all right, well, now that okay, there we go. So, just a quick what he how he ended that. He said if Keaton does end up on the Bulls, how y'all feel about that?
I guess I'll hop in, go first.
Mm-hmm.
I think Keaton, like I was saying earlier, I think he's a really talented player, and to Mike's point, I think he could be really successful at operating the pick and roll, which is becoming a mainstay in the modern NBA. And like I said, my one worry is the athleticism next to a guy like Josh Giddey. But I'm also not in love with Josh Giddey. And there's a very good chance that whoever the new front office isn't in love with him either. And we could see a lot of roster movement, a lot of turnover. And there's a very good chance we could position ourselves for whoever we pick in the first round to be that centerpiece moving forward.
Yeah.
I think Gonzalez is pretty safe. So I think it's going to be that pick and Modest. I think Giddey's a more person-to-person flavor versus a universally loved thing, and maybe a new GM won't want to build with a player like that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for a guy like Keaton Wagler to come to this Bulls team. He's going to get a lot of shots like Mike. I mean, Mike Walton might actually be Mike D'Antoni disciple over here with shooting the threes.
Mike Dan Walton in this mug.
But I do think Keaton Wagler would be successful in the type of system the Bulls have been running for the past couple of years, for sure.
Yeah, Walton, how you feel, man?
Yeah, I mean, you guys already know. Great. I mean, Wagler is fifth on my board. That could change. We're at that time of the year where everything is being evaluated. I'm like a clockwork orange with my eyes just sort of peeled back with draft content, just on a roll. So that's kind of life right now. But after the top four, which I think most people have pretty well established, I've said a ton. It's kind of eye of the beholder. After that top four, it's really who you like, what type of basketball you like, kind of how you feel 5 through 10. As we get closer to the draft, I think the only player that I'll be a lot higher on the consensus is Yaxel Lindenberg from Michigan. Just because, again, I don't care about his age and I like what he does. But staying on topic here, I would feel great about Wagler with Chicago. I think offensively he has a pretty high ceiling. If you're worried about him being a bust, I think at worst he's a pretty helpful off-the-bench scoring talent, which there are worse things to have. The Bulls especially are going to need people to put the ball in the basket if you're not re-signing a guy like Colin Sexton. So it could be helpful to have Wagler around, even worst case scenario. But for me, it's about best case scenario. He's a guy who can carry the offensive load. He's a guy where if you want someone else to have the ball in their hands more like Matas or Giddey, I don't think you have any problem with Wagler spotting up and being more of a complementary player. If you believe a little bit less in Matas or Giddey, you got no problem giving Wagler the ball and saying, hey, you go cook, and you guys kind of work off of him. Maybe you try to get Matas to bulk up and set more screens, have him be more of a lob threat, sort of solve a problem with teaching Matas a skill that he doesn't specialize in much. So I think with Wagler, there's just a lot of options for him to be a good, successful player. The biggest things for me is, again, doesn't turn the ball over a lot for a guy who was asked to do a lot at a young age. So I just think it projects well to him having the capability to be a star player. which is if I'm really trying to draft the best possible talent, that's what I'm looking for. Do you have the capability to one day carry the load? Because most guys can't do that. When it comes to what Undisputed was talking about with the defense, when I say ignore the defense, it's not literal. It's just the Bulls are in the bottom half of the league offensively and defensively in terms of like advanced, defensive and offensive rating. So they're bad on both sides of the ball. So make no mistake, they should try to improve defensively, offensively, however. But in my opinion, if your core is going to be Gideon Buzelis, I think it's pretty obvious to see which way is going to be easier to build. It's going to be easier to be a good team based around scoring the ball, with Giddey kind of getting guys the ball in their spots. So I think Wagler would solve a lot of options. And again, when I talk about that, ignoring the defense, if the Bulls stay at 9, they don't move up, and Wagler falls to 9, great scenario, because he's an offensive talent. And if he hits the ceiling, you got a guy who probably is like a top 7-ish talent at the 9th pick. But if you say, oh man, we care about the defense, we got to be good at defense. Let's draft Ade Mara at 9. He's 7'3", he's big, he's going to block shots. And then he's so bad at switching and staying in front of small guys that you got to bring him off the bench. He's kind of a 15-minute, rotation big. You just burnt a top 10 pick in one of the most talented drafts on a guy who's a lumbering 7'3" big, who's kind of a gimmicky backup because you were so focused on defense. So you can't focus on just offense either and say, Wagler's so good at threes, let's just take him in the top 3, like Sonny said. But everything is nuanced. So I think if you're the Bulls, I'm thinking of what other offensive talent can I put next to Giddey and Matas, where now my offense is really cooking, and then we can focus on what can we add defensively to sort of build out around this roster. And again, just to reference the person Undisputed, he's been saying this a ton in the chat here. It's like, you love the young guys we have on the team now, Leonard Miller, Dillingham, these guys. We hope these guys can maybe turn into defensive talents, not in Dillingham's case, but in Miller, you got some size and someone who can help out. So you're not going to be good overnight on either side of the ball. So I would love taking Wagler because, again, you got to focus on building out a good offense if you're going to keep Josh Giddey. Giddey is Undisputed's favorite player. So if you're willing to move off of Josh Giddey, then I think you can go, hey, let's build out this team defensively and focus on that. But if we're keeping Giddey, let's build a good offense because, again, I love Giddey these days. I think he's a great player. It's just if we're going to build a team around Josh Giddey, let's build a team around Josh Giddey. So.
Absolutely. I know one of your guys, I know you touched on him last week when we were with Metcalf, but shout out to Uncle Phil, because I think that's somebody from Sonny's community. So thanks for staying in the show, Phil. He asked you about Steinbeck. He said Steinbeck from Washington would be good maybe with the Portland pick. So do you want to touch on Steinbeck a little bit?
I mean, I soured on Steinbeck a bit. Shout out to Bromes, who's in the Discord. I don't even know where I would have him right now. Still a first-round talent, a guy I like a lot. My main issue with him, who let the dogs out? They were just hating the idea of Ade Mara at 9. They freak the fuck out when they hear the idea of the Bulls taking a 7'3" big who isn't French in the top 10. They hate it. Shit. But my thing with Steinbeck is I just think offensively he's very good. We know he's going to rebound like a monster at both ends of the floor. Defensively, if he's not going to be able to play 5 for long stretches, it changes the equation a lot. He dabbled in shooting the 3-point shot, but wasn't really serious about it. Looked a little bit proficient, but he's just the guy where I don't really know what position he plays in the NBA. And as much as I don't care about positions, when you're a center who's not really a center, I think it's the toughest archetype to sort of work with in today's league, especially if you're an offense-first player. So I'd still take Steinbeck in the first, but with that 15th pick, I would not. I think that's a little too high for me. 15, I would swing on maybe Ade Mara, who I mentioned 9 being a little too rich for my blood. But again, at 7'3", he does have an interesting skill set where 15 is okay. You're outside of the lottery. You're not burning a pick, as I said. But in the top 10, I think I want a guy who, again, if I close my eyes and squint really hard, I can see an all-star player, one day. So,
yeah. Kurtz?
Dude, Mike's cooking at a high level right now.
He is, man.
I don't know Steinbach ball.
Chef Walton.
I believe what Mike's saying. I did like his one point though about you're not going to fix the defense in one pick, right?
That's got to be racist, AD.
There's
AD came in on demon time.
Oh
God,
anyway.
My bad. Yeah. Let's go.
There's only one defensive player in the first round that I think completely could alter your defense, and that's Caleb Wilson. and obviously a guy we'd have to jump up for
Yes.
a bit. But other than that, like, you can draft a couple like solid defensive players. Like, I think Burries is going to be able to guard his yard and, take the matchup in front of him, but he's not going to change your defense alone. I think his defense is similar to a Coro, where, like on a good team, a good defensive team, he's going to be a standout, but he's not going to be a standout on his own. So why not go for the offense, I guess? This hurts me so much to say that Mike, the double the offense, half the defense, man, this is hurting me. It's hurting me.
The more you think about it, the more sense it makes. Also,
Mike Walton.
AD totally a hater over there. White prospect can't have a little motion while AD's watching the ball.
God forbid.
Not on his watch. Not on his watch.
God forbid a white prospect have a little motion in his draft, man.
But yeah, it's just for that 15th pick, there is no perfect answer. I think you just want to take not exactly best player available. I do want to focus a little bit on fit, I think, with that 15th pick, assuming you take a nice swing at 9 or jump into the top 4. But just to throw Undisputed a little bit of a bone here, if the Bulls jump into the top 4, I would be like, yo, now let's focus on like the defense a little bit more, because you're in the top 4. I want the kid to do everything. But I'm assuming that the Bulls, in the world where they don't jump up and they're picking at 9, I just want best player available, highest ceiling, and I'm assuming that's going to be Burries or Wagler if they're staying at that 9 spot. But we see.
Hey, I mean, not to be a doomer, man, but we're the Bulls. We don't get nice things. We're not jumping up. I don't think we're going to jump up.
I don't know, man. We already getting nice things with AK getting this terrorist ass out of here. So
that was because of Jaden Ivey, though. AK is not going to matter on Judgment Day, man.
Jesus Christ. Oh man. All right, boys. Well, hey, did you want to touch on anything else, Chris? We know we got that episode tonight with Shy Sports Ross. If you guys are familiar with Ross, I'm sure you are. He's the original AK fan club on Twitter. So shout out to them days on Twitter if you're around for those. The official Arturas Karnisovas fan club that was Shy Sports Ross, who now is on Swish Theory. So we'll be on with him tonight, diving into his big board for Swish Theory and some draft prospects. So I'll save some of that for later. But Curtis, I mean, did you have anything else you want to touch on before you get out of here today?
No, I think for this week I'm good. I'm looking forward to watching it tonight, later on, catching up. Sorry I couldn't be on it with you guys again, but
yeah,
you guys got Pep coming back, right? So
Joe Pep, yeah, man. Shout out to Joe Pep.
Yeah,
he sent me a text last night. He asked, he was like, "Hey, do you think there was anything that, like, any feedback or anything I should improve on for the show?" I'm like, "Dude, you cooked." I told him, I said, "You and Kurtz came through and exceeded all expectations, man. Like, only feedback I have for you is positive. So yeah, it'll be nice to have him on.
That man looks like he's been podcasting for decades.
He's an OG,
man. It was crazy. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, he's a goon, man. He's a goon.
Hey, shout out Abe. Shout out Abe, man. OG.
Yes, Abe the OG.
And thanks for coming through.
We need Abe back in the Discord, man. We got some good vibes going in the course, some great conversation, Abe. So hop back in there with us, man. But yeah, Mike, did you have any closing thoughts today before we hop on later?
No, man, it was just great to talk to Sunny. Shout out to the Talk Illini, the Illini Discord. And I just saw a comment that literally took me off of my, literally lost my entire train of thought. Someone said,
this comment section is crazy today.
Well, someone said, so don't take Debansta. Gotcha. I just want to acknowledge that, because I don't know even what's the context, but take Debansta in any context. I have him number 1, but I don't know if I thought maybe that was to my defense comment, but I was like, in the top 4, I think he would maybe be the best defensively. So definitely take Debansta. I don't know what was going on there.
Yeah, it's Undisputed and Bizarro Undisputed.
Hey, I would have taken that guy. I would have taken that guy last year as our pick.
Yeah. I literally was going to say, if I was allowed to, I would have taken Debansta number 1 last year, and just like maybe, or at least 2. But yeah, it was great.
Going to be a bust.
Amon's going to be a bust. I mean, we'll talk about that a little later. But that's
I'll let you guys touch on that one later.
But yeah, it was great to talk to Sonny. Great to talk some Wagler. I really do hope he goes to Chicago, just because, one, the Illini fan base in Chicago obviously goes hand in hand. We saw in IO how great that can be and how much they support their guys. And then also Undisputed, who we always reference just because he blows up our chat. He seems to really hate the idea of Wagler in Chicago. So I kind of just want to see him go full nuclear and see if Wagler in Chicago, like, whether it goes good or bad, I would just kind of love to see the reaction so we could get some content out of that. But yeah, it was great to talk to Sonny, and I love learning a little bit more about Stojakovic and college ball too. So learned a lot about the team today.
Yeah, shout out again to Sonny, man. Like, just a goon, dude. Just a goon. So it's been great. And like, we have people from his Discord in our Discord now. Like, shout out to Ostrich again. Shout out to Monk. I don't know who Der Undisputed is. Whoever that is out there, man. Shout out to you. Said they want to join the Discord, but yeah, come through. We got the QR code up there at the top. Or if you're in Sunny's Discord, we'll come drop a link in there later. And the same for this guy, Pure Brady. I don't know who that is, but thanks for coming. I know you just got here, but we appreciate you coming in regardless. We'll be back on at 7 p.m. tonight, so hop in there tonight. But yeah, man, this was a great show, man.
Yeah, love it. Appreciate you guys. Per usual.
Absolutely. All right, well, yeah, I'll see you boys in a little bit, man. I'm gonna hop off.
All right.
Thanks for coming through, guys. Much love.